The Sopranos, and I love Carmen Policy, former president, vice president, CEO of the 49ers.
Kind of like a consigliere.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Five-time Super Bowl champion. We love Carmen on the show. I heard through the grapevine that he was hooked up with Mr. Ring, John Ring from the Olympic Club.
Way.
Yeah, Carmen's making
John's
rounds around here. What's up, Carmen? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm sharpening my wits. I have to really be on top form when I show up tomorrow to address the Olympic Club's charitable group, their foundation committee, and it's always fun. Those guys are always a great group, and they do a lot of great things, especially for kids in sports. And it's going to be a fun day. And I could say stuff there I can't say here either.
Yeah, I know you can. You can. But if you want to, we won't judge you, Carmen. All right, I got to ask you about this past Sunday because I'm 41 years old. We've gone through the heartbreaks. But I was asking everybody yesterday, from your adult life, from 18 to whatever, over 18, because the last time the Niners won a championship, Shasky and I were 12 years old. We were in middle school, so it's been a while. We haven't seen the 49ers or witnessed the Niners win in our adult life here. But what was your emotions watching that title game, down 17 at the half to the Detroit Lions? Because we're at the stadium, and I actually prayed on Sunday for the first time in a long time, Carmen, just anything to get something done in that football game. What were your emotions like watching that NFC title game?
Well, let me start with the week before. So when I saw what occurred, with the Green Bay Packers coming in there and playing the way they did and that game going the way it went and the 49ers surviving it, I thought, okay, so long as this is a situation where we shook off some rust and we're ready to go, and now we're even better positioned to take on whoever is going to play us in the NFC Championship game. We've got to come out, and we've got to come out quick, and we've got to be effective fast. And then I'm watching what's happening during the first half, and I actually thought we may fall apart even worse in this game than the other. I didn't see a comeback at first. And lo and behold, of course, a half a dozen things had to happen. But those things did happen, and somehow we found a way to win. And I think back to how we always were really ready to go in the playoffs. Of our 5 Super Bowls when I was there, I'd say three of the playoff seasons we were ready to go, and we had control of those games, and we went into the Super Bowl looking like the best team and the team most ready to take it on. And this year, here we're struggling to survive, but we did survive. So I think something's happening. And now, cut me off. Don't let me ramble too much.
No, keep going. You're rolling.
Yeah. Well, as I start looking at it, I start thinking to myself, all these wise guys are picking Kansas City, and I understand why they're picking Kansas City. If you look at it, all the history for the past 4 or 5 Super Bowls, Mahomes being the magician and so forth and so on. Nothing seems quite right with the 49ers in terms of historical approaches to the Super Bowl. You're looking at Kansas City. All of a sudden, they not only have Mahomes, the fellow who beat us, 4 years ago. Yep. They now have a defense.
Yep.
And they now somehow have a running game too, and it just doesn't make any sense. But I have to tell you, and there's no justification for what I'm going to say. There's no logic. There's no intelligence. I should be booed off the radio, okay? But things are happening with these Niners, with this quarterback that you picked out of the practice squad almost, and that you're dealing with on a week after week basis, and then that catch by Ayuk, which I called the ladybug catch. I don't see how the 49ers can lose. I swear to you, something's hanging on to their shoulders. And, of course, if you grew up where I did, ladybugs were really respected. I don't know if you guys ever, when you saw a ladybug on your jacket, you don't dare crush it or you don't even flick it. You may give it a little blow, but they were respected bugs. So I just don't see how you can beat the ladybug effect on this game. I think we're going all the way.
Let's go, Carmen. I like to hear that.
Carmen, everybody wants to compare and contrast whether it's Belichick, Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan to Bill Walsh, right? Because Bill's one of the gold standards. How did he evolve over the years? Because I'm sure he wasn't the same coach that he was at the beginning in 79 that he was, let's say, in 85 or in 88. Because I'm looking at Shanahan, and I'm seeing an evolution from Kyle Shanahan. Have you noticed those same differences in Kyle Shanahan? I don't feel like he's the same guy from 2019, that first Super Bowl run.
Well, he is not the same guy, and he has evolved. But I think Kyle Shanahan is more like his father than like Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh was so bright, and he was so ahead of his time, and he was marvelous to watch and observe. But the longer he stayed, in the position he had, where he had to manage and maintain a dynasty, the more it tormented him. And the more it ate away at him, and he just, instead of reveling in who he was and what he did and how he did it and the people that were around him that he developed, as well as the history in the NFL, he was allowing that pressure to take away any joy, to take away any sense of accomplishment, to almost make it like, God, it's hard to get up in the morning. And I don't see that at all on Kyle Shanahan, and I never saw anything similar to that with Mike Shanahan. Mike Shanahan was all about, oh, this is great. Come on, let's go. If we can win, I could do this for 50 years, that kind of thing. And I think that Kyle he fell very close to the tree, and I'm if anything, he's going to get better and better.
Yeah,
that's how I feel. And I think that's another factor, not taking away from the ladybug effect. Mm-hmm. I think that's another factor that's going to make a difference. The Kyle Shanahan that's going to be coaching in the Super Bowl this year is different than the Kyle Shanahan who coached 4 years ago.
Yeah, I feel like he's more aggressive with his play calling, and he trusts his quarterback, which he may have not done in 2019. We're talking to Carmen Policy, the former vice president, and CEO of the 49ers from 81 to 97. And of course, he has 5 Super Bowl rings, helping the Niners dominate the NFL for a 15, 16-year span. What is this 2-week lead up to the Super Bowl like as a football team? What is it like? You get the bye week, you're prepping, and then you get down to the Super Bowl, or is this going to be distractions at every turn? What is this 2-week lead up like for the players and the coaches and the front office?
Well, first of all, it's great. It's great in many ways. You're going to the Super Bowl, and it's really great when your team is healthy. And I'm assuming that Debo is going to be in fine form by the time he takes the field on the 11th.
8 catches, 89 yards on Sunday, Carmen. I think Debo's just fine.
Yeah, he's good. And so when you're turning around and you're looking at all the great names that's on your team, and all those great names also happen to be healthy. I mean, think about that. First of all, that's a plus. Secondly, it's all there now. Everything you work for, everything that you've trained for, it's all come together, giving you the opportunity in this last game to prove that you're the absolute very best, and you're going to be part of a situation no one ever can take away from you, and it changes your life. It truly does change your life in so many ways, and they can have a little fun with it, and they could this first week. The next week is craziness, and I think it was so brilliant to keep the teams out there by Lake Las Vegas, which I don't care what anybody says. It's a schlep getting from there down to the Strip, and then they don't. I don't think the players, even the players who aren't playing, are even permitted in the casinos, if I'm not mistaken. Let alone they can't gamble, and you don't want them in the casinos either because you don't want them out late and the shows. And that sort of lifestyle, you just want them paying attention to this big game, one of the biggest games of their lives. And I think that next week will be fine as well. But then the pressure really starts growing when Wednesday hits, and you realize, here we are. I mean, when we were down in, Eddie DeBartolo just, he tried to make it. He tried to make it a grand experience for everybody, and the players. There was no limit to what the only limits we put were on Deion Sanders, because he said he would call. He'd say, "Mr. D, I got some family coming to town. I may need some tickets for parties and maybe even a couple for the game and so forth and so on." And then he said, "Fine, just call Carmen. He'll take care of it." So he called me. He says, I have family. What do you need, Deion? He says, well, I got about 50 members of my family coming. And I said, what? He said, yeah, and they're bringing somebody. So could I get 100 tickets to the Super Bowl, please? I said, how about dinner reservations for 12 at the restaurant of your choice, and maybe a few party tickets? But it was just it was at one point fun, and we allowed them to have fun. As a matter of fact, you mind if I digress for a second?
Keep going.
It became a point of contention with Jerry Rice.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? And I mean, I respect Jerry for this, but we were trying to keep everybody loose, too. We said, we'll tighten things down. George Seifert, Mike Shannon, we've talked about how we were going to do it. We'll tighten things down maybe around Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest, and get everybody back to focus, but we don't want to be too uptight and so forth. And Jerry, who had been to other Super Bowls, of course, just was feeling that things were not tight enough and that we weren't focused enough. And Jerry kind of expressed himself rather, I'll say, aggressively. And it created a little bit of a stir between him and Deion. But ultimately, it all came together, and those guys were all on the same page, and it worked famously well.
Carmen, I'm sure that you keep in contact with all of the, what I call like the luminaries, the pillars of the organization, Joe, Steve, Eddie, I'm sure. Maybe you're still talking to Mike Shanahan himself, other great players from this team. If there was a group text message or some way to summarize what everyone's saying about Brock Purdy, like all the old school guys, like what are they saying about this guy, Brock Purdy? Because I'm watching this kid, and I don't care what the other people are saying outside. I'm just watching him, and I'm like, I can't believe he's doing what he's doing in these moments. And it's just, it's special what we're watching right now. What are you guys saying?
Well, okay, without attributing anything to anyone particularly, okay? No names connected to this. Agreed?
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Agreed.
They liked the guy. I'm telling you. And they'll say things like, when he ran the ball last weekend, and basically was one of the major reasons that the Niners were in a position to ultimately win that game. Those 3 scrambles and first downs and putting the team in the position he did and so forth and so on. They said he kind of reminded you of Joe when Joe would scramble. It wasn't pretty, but boy, was it effective. And, they'd say things like that. And there's this constant a referral back to Joe. Now, keep in mind, Joe's on a pedestal, okay? We're not talking about them saying he's the next Joe. We're talking about them saying they see similarities in his style of play and some of his qualities that they saw in Joe. And they like it. And they feel comfortable with it. And they think he's capable of taking this team and taking it to a position of being a championship team. And they like him. I think some of them said they would have liked someone like that in the locker room. And there is some strange resemblances from a personality standpoint, even with Joe, although Joe is exceedingly competitive. But the guys just bonded with them, and they wanted to be part of whatever Joe was doing, and he was like the good kid who had a kind of a not a bad boy attitude, but an attitude that was a little on the edge, and he even brought that to his style of play. They're all in on Purdy. They think we got a quarterback that can win all this for us. Now, let's take it one step further. They're also feeling pretty good about the coach. They're also feeling pretty good about some of those stars on that team.
That running back.
Oh my God, he just is. And don't you love him?
He's the best.
I mean, I watch him and I listen to him and I hear the stuff he says. And when he says it, he means it. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful asset. And then the defense. And God, we should win this game. We should win this game. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And it's going back to those indefinable elements. Forgive me, guys, but I got to say it, the ladybug effect. It's just you just have to believe sometimes that there's an element of power and an element of almost fate that opens the door for teams sometime during the course of their existence. And I think the same element of power and fate have gotten in the way of the 49ers in the past.
Take me into the... Oh, I'm sorry, Carmen. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just was going to say, take me into the owner's suite, like Jed York. This is now his third Super Bowl appearance as part of the front man, if you will, for the team. I'm sure you were sitting there next to Eddie as he was losing his mind during games at times and whatnot. We look at this as a failure or a success if you win it all. Like, take me through the owner's lens as he's watching these last couple of games and then winning at the end there.
Well, I think the best way I can do that, if you have the time, is for me to tell you what was happening at the end of our Bill Walsh's last Super Bowl, when we're in Miami and Cincinnati's winning by 3 points, and there's I think 2 minutes and 2 seconds left or something like that, and we have the ball on our 8-yard line. You remember that?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
All right, so I'm walking down to the locker room with Eddie, and we're going to the locker room, and we're going to greet the team, and my whole approach is, okay, Ed, you got to get yourself ready. You've got to get yourself ready for that press that's going to be all over you. And they know how passionate you are and how losses affect you, and you've got to handle this with the world watching. You've got to handle this in a way that shows some grace and shows patience and shows the future's still ahead of us and so forth and so on, because there's a good chance we could lose this game. And he said something very nasty to me at that point. And after he said for me to go and do something to myself, he suggested that I stay on the field and watch the game. He's going to the locker room. He doesn't want to see me till the game's over, okay? He didn't want to hear it, just didn't want to hear it. Then John Taylor, God bless him, we pulled that game out with him and Joe, and I walk in there, and he grabs me and hugs me, and he says, I told you didn't know what you were talking about. And I mean, it's just and another time we were bouncing around in the stadium, moving from the owner's suite because it's too crowded, finding ourselves in the coach's box. We couldn't go to the press box because that was too crowded. It was one nerve-wracking second after another, and even when we were ahead, it was that way. And but I mean, for sure you're alive. I can tell you that. And I think that we have to understand how hard it is to get to the Super Bowl. And I think that Jed and the 49ers getting there 3 times, that's quite a remarkable feat when you really analyze it. And look at Detroit. You had to feel good for Detroit getting to where they got. But I think, again, I'm going to say it one more time. This is the game. This is the year. This is the moment in time where it all pays off for the Niners, I think.
And they break the drought. They break the Super Bowl drought. That's
yes,
what
sir.
we want. Will you be in Vegas, Carmen, for this game? Will Eddie DeBartolo Sr. be attending this football game? We got to run here, but quickly, will you be there?
No.
Will Eddie D be there?
No, and I talked to Eddie, no, but I think Eddie's grandson and maybe some of the family are going to go, but Eddie's not going to go. He and he's going to stay at he's going to stay at his ranch in Montana, I believe. And
why? We need Eddie D here. We need him here, Carmen.
know.
He needs to come out. He needs to hand that Vince Lombardi trophy to Jed and Kyle Shanahan. We need Eddie D in Vegas. Come on, Carmen. Work your magic.
Pretty cool.
Work your magic. The
I'm going to
fans
stay home and drink Casa Piano wine and hopefully see what I'm predicting.
I love
it. But you know what? Joe being on the stage at the NFC Conference Championship game was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have to tell you. They had a little mix-up there with Michael Strahan, but it was darn cool seeing him up there on the stage like that.
No doubt. Carmen
gentleman,
Policy.
Carmen.
Yeah. Awesome talking to you as always. We wish you were going to Vegas, you alongside Eddie D, but good stuff there. Carmen Policy, courtesy of the Boxer and Girls and Guest Line. Have fun at the O Club tomorrow. Always great to talk to you, Carmen. Take care.
Thank you, gentlemen. I love you guys. Take
Thanks,
care.
Carmen. Love you too, man. Love you too.
man.
Carmen Policy here on the Morning Roast, of course, on the Boxer and Girls and Guest Line.